But before we can truly pit the armies of medieval might versus the orcs, let's have a look at the armies and their compilation. And let's begin with the English army. Originally leading a force of 10,000 English and Welshmen, having left a sizable garrison at Ban Hurin, Henry's army is now at 8,000 men. Like most English armies of the time, the vast majority of his troops are the feared longbowmen. With an effective range of 150 metres, or about 500 feet, the longbow could be a devastating weapon in the hands of the Englishmen and Welshmen who used them. The longbow could also effectively pierce anything short of plate armour at medium ranges, thanks to the use of bodkin arrowheads. Each archer could comfortably loose 6 arrows a minute, and had a full quiver of 72 arrows. Meaning with Henry's force of 6,500 bowmen, any enemy army will have to contend with almost 500,000 arrows being shot in their direction. These bowmen in Henry's army are well experienced, disciplined troops, veterans of the long campaigns of Wales and France. For armour, many will wear simple padded armour, although others will wear mail and some elements of plate. For melee combat, archers will commonly carry mallets, axes, daggers and some swords, with many also carrying a buckler shield. Unlike many other archers, those in the English army are also more than capable in the bloody melee, where years of archer strength training can be put to good use. The dedicated melee troops of the Henrican force consists of 1,500 knights and men-at-arms. These melee troops are the finest in England, and unlike most of the knights of Europe, the English usually prefer to fight on foot, where they can better protect their archers. The men-at-arms are professional and well armed, wearing the colourful tabards proudly displaying the colours of their lord and the Red Cross of St. George. Most wear mail and plate. Their heavy armour provides them with all but immunity to all but the strongest of weapons, wielding a variety of weapons from devastating two-handed poleaxes to longswords, lances, axes and shields. Although usually acting as a holding force, their skill in melee have been tested against the finest fighting forces in Europe, and now it shall be tested against the orcs. These men-at-arms also include Henry's own personal retinue, an elite troop of the king's closest friends and confidants. They are the elite of the English force and will remain by the side of Henry throughout. The English will deploy in its typical fashion. The men-at-arms will deploy in 3 groups of about 500 men each. Henry himself commanding the centre, with his own household troops held in close reserve. Pockets of longbowmen are dispersed into defensive positions between the infantry blocks, with a mass of archers on each flank in a concave line. The archers deploy sharpened stakes in front of their lines to protect themselves. Some effort might have been made to also dig defensive ditches, but the Orc army, in a forced march, stop any further defences from being built. Now approaching a field is a much more numerical force, outnumbering the English almost 2 to 1. The forces of Mordor, spearheaded by Cumul the Easterling, moves to contend the English army. The elite of the Orc army are the Black Orcs of Mordor. The Orcs are the biggest and strongest of the Orc race, standing as tall as a man and almost as strong. They wear the best armour and carry the best weapons that the forges of Mordor can produce, or what can be scavenged upon the battlefield. The Orcs are also quite disciplined by Orc standards, capable of forming ranks and following orders. They will form the elite bulwark of the Orcish host. The bulk of the Orcish force, however, is nowhere near as well trained, equipped or motivated as the Orcs. Drawn from across the realms of the Dark Lord, the Orcs are cruel creatures, shorter and weaker than a man, poorly equipped with whatever scavenged equipment they are able to find. What they lack in skill, they make up with sheer numbers, with 10,000 various Orcs as part of this army, including 2,000 archers. These numbers do include some units such as the Maulers, who fight with large two-handed cleavers, and the relatively well-armed nature of the Orcs of Morannon, but the majority of which are simple rabble from across the lands. Although cowardly by nature, Orcs are brave in large enough numbers, but are reliant on the brutal Orc captains and taskmasters and the Nazgul themselves to keep them in the fight. Supporting them are 2,000 warg riders. The wargs are ferocious wolf-like creatures that, although slower than a horse, is much more vicious. As well as around 100 trolls. These hulking brutes are very resilient to melee attacks and can devastate even the best armoured opponents. The majority of these trolls will be fighting amidst the infantry to give them an advantage. Finally, alongside the forces of orcs and trolls are around 1,000 other dark beasts, including giant spiders, feral wargs, and many other stranger beasts drawn by the lure of darkness. Although hard to control on the battlefield, these troops can be unleashed upon an enemy and can greatly impact the morale of enemies, especially those unused to fighting such beasts. It's also worth mentioning Khamul himself. As a member of the Ringwraiths, Khamul does have access to some dark magics. In particular, the Nazgul's scream is able to inspire terror in all who hear it. Khamul also does have access to the Fell Beast. Although not as powerful as a true dragon, it is a formidable winged mount nonetheless. The orcs deploy in 3 lines. The first 2 lines being comprised of the lower quality infantry and the archers, with the orcs held in the 3rd line. Warg cavalry deploy on the flanks, with the trolls deployed amongst the infantry to support them in battle. In his camp, Henry waited, keeping his troops in readiness despite the lateness of the day. Amongst the ranks, prayers are made and mass is heard, as they stand at full readiness for battle. Henry himself was unsure whether the orcs would attack so late in the day. It would be unusual for humans to attack, but these were not humans he was fighting now. Still, he was already putting plans in place to goad the enemy army into attacking his defensive position in the morning, readying a troop of mounted archers to ride out to harass the orc army. But such plans were unnecessary, as with a blare of horns, the beating of drums, and thousands of orcs chanting their dedication to their Dark Lord, the orcs began to advance on the English lines.